Okay, folks. All right, you guys can hear me now, right? Sorry, my mic just disconnected, and I was talking, and I was like, why is there no audio? Well, okay. All right, folks, tonight on the Vince Dow Show. Sorry about the late start. Tonight on the Vince Dow Show, Donald Trump has been arrested, I should say, in Washington, D.C. We got to give you our thoughts on that front. Also, Joe Rogan today was grilled a little bit on why he won't interview Donald Trump, and we'll talk about that because I think that's interesting. Also, got to follow up on this story in South Africa having to do with the whole kill the boer, kill the white farmer chant, because, you know, you haven't heard a lot of coverage about this in mainstream media, but frankly, I think it's one of the most important stories in the world, especially because of its implications here in the West. We will talk about that. Also, Gavin, Newsom, and Ron DeSantis have agreed to a debate for 2 hours. Is it going to be interesting at all? I'll give you my thoughts. That's tonight on the Vince Dow Show. Stay tuned. And we are live tonight from the great state of Florida. Welcome, everyone, to the Vince Dow Show. It is August 3rd, the year of our Lord 2023, and I am your galaxy-brained host, Vince Dow. Before we begin, everyone be sure to leave a like right now on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And, of course, as usual, if you do got questions, comments, anything you want to send in, your thoughts throughout the show, and, of course, if you do want to support the show, we are an independent production here, feel free to do so via the Super Chats. I'll check all of our Super Chats periodically in between all of our segments. As usual, your support is greatly appreciated. All right, folks, we got a lot to talk about tonight. And of course, we got to give you our thoughts and coverage on the new Trump arraignment today and arrest in this time in Washington, D.C. This is, of course, over his third indictment. And we'll talk about that in a second. But first, let me say this. I got a little opening monologue for you guys tonight, okay? Because I think this is pretty important. Every single time that we go through one of these Trump indictments, there's a usual general consensus that, oh, it's going to help Donald Trump. And because of the martyrdom effect, which is understandable, I feel it too, right? A lot of people kind of actually want to vote for Donald Trump much more because they understand, look, Donald Trump tells us he's a threat to the system. And, you know, by going out here and the system is going after him, clearly that shows, right, he must indeed be a threat to the system. But there's a small minority we so often see of people, and this is obviously specifically kind of in DeSantis world, who have gone out there and said that, listen, this is actually making Donald Trump a liability, right? Have you heard this? You guys heard this argument before? Sorry, I'm trying to fix my tie here. You know, you hear people say this, right? They say, look, we want a general election where people are not constantly talking about Trump's trial or Trump's indictment. And people say this is actually a bad thing because it is distracting the American people from the important issues that are going to be on the ballot in 2024 and the real things like the economy, the country, all of this. And I want to open tonight by addressing that argument a little bit by saying, look, guys, to the DeSantis people, to anyone with a different candidate, frankly, I do legitimately understand those arguments. I understand where they come from. Here's the problem, is that you want to talk about what wars to fight, what battle to fight. Is this the hill the GOP should be dying on, defending Donald Trump's in the indictments? The answer is absolutely yes, right? This is, frankly, the final battle for the Republic. This is the hill to be dying on. And what realistically, you see everything that's going on. Most Republicans, even if you're not the biggest Trump fan, right? I don't know why it keeps doing that. Most Republicans, even if you're not the biggest Trump fan, agree. All right, hold on, guys. Everything's going wrong right now. Hold on. All right. See, we're being attacked. Jack Smith is messing with the wire. Okay, geez. Hold on. Let me just give me a second. Let me just unplug this and put it back in. Old school method, okay? We're being attacked as we speak, folks. Jack Smith himself is meddling with the wires, and so is Joe Biden. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, right? Where was I? This absolutely is the battle that we have to die on. Because think about what it says. Not to get kind of preachy with you all, but it's true. Think about what this says. how are we gonna, as you know, look at the GOP of the future, right? Look at our children and tell them about how, oh yeah, you know, there came a time when the regime, you know, systematically tried to target the front runner in our party, and you know, they were trying to throw him in jail. They're trying to use all these unprecedented means of power against him, and we kind of just caved to that demand by just saying, okay, well, let's just run a different candidate. You know, we just decided that was a bit much. We let them win, and we just decided to nominate a totally different candidate entirely. What precedent does that set for the future? How can you really go forward as a respectable party and a respectable political movement having literally just been pushed around and bullied like that? In my opinion, that absolutely cannot happen, right? So I am totally on the camp that, you know, what they're doing to Donald Trump only further vindicates that this is the guy we need to nominate, in my opinion. But even if you disagree, even if you think, I don't want the 2024 election to be all about the indictments and the corruption of the government and what's happening to Donald Trump. Again, I understand the argument. I understand saying, no, I want it to be about the economy or culture or whatever it is. The problem is you cannot just simply pack up and run from certain fights, right? They have brought this battlefield to us. We did not want it. We did not ask for it, but they have brought this kind of battle onto us. So either A, we stand and fight the thing that they're forcing us to deal with, or what do? You run from it? You retreat from it? Where's that going to end up, right? And if we don't stop it now, you guys know for a fact, I think we all virtually agree with this, you know what they're going to do to the Republican candidates of the future. So I don't think that's a viable option at all. This only doubles down, again, like we need Donald Trump, and this is what we're going to have to do. And it's very interesting because most people, besides the Mike Pence and maybe Nikki Haley supporters, most conservatives out there will universally agree that the problem with our movement, of course, and they say this all the time, is that we're weak, we're pushovers, we never stand up and fight. Well, to me, it would be the ultimate show of weakness, folks. I mean, let's can we agree on this? It would be the ultimate show of weakness when they're indicting and trying to arrest and jail the former president of the United States and the current frontrunner for our race, for us to just say, oh yeah, that's a bit too much heat. You know, let's just nominate someone else so we don't have to deal with this liability that is Donald Trump in the 2024 election. I hate to say it again. I fully understand why some of you guys don't want the 24 election to be all about this, but they've brought this to us. And if you want to talk about conservatives standing up and fighting and not running, not retreating, not caving to them for once, again, it to me is tantamount that you cannot let this political persecution win. You cannot, as a party, as an electorate, stand by and say, okay, well, listen, we were going to vote for this guy, and he was for the whole time the front runner to be our nominee, but they threw a few indictments at him. They used the power of government, and now I don't really want him. And of course, what is the precedent that's going to set for the party in the future? Even if you don't like Donald Trump, let's say 2028, 2032, a candidate comes along who you genuinely do like and you genuinely do respect. Okay, what do you think they're going to do to that guy? If they learned, hey, if the Republicans run someone who's a little too anti-establishment, a little too conservative, we can just indict him and get him out of the race. What's that going to say in the future? No, it has to stop now. The battle lines, figuratively speaking, peacefully speaking, have to be drawn now. And to me, that's why I totally will stand by, even more so than before. Every time I see them indict Donald Trump, every time I see them try to arraign him, you know, it kind of vindicates to me, yeah, he has to be our candidate. Frankly, whether we even want him as our candidate, because I know some of you don't. But again, how can you sit by as this stuff happens and just kind of say, oh, well, you know, okay, fine, nominate someone else? It's nonsense. You can't go down that path, okay? So let me just say that as my little preachy little opening here, but it is definitely true. Anyways, let's get into some of the news of the arraignment today and kind of break it all down. So, as you probably have heard by now, today Donald Trump showed up to his third arrest and arraignment process at the Washington, D.C. courthouse. You know, this time it's over a lot of stuff having to do with January 6th. As I said the other night, this is actually the most important, in my opinion, of the Trump indictments, because in the past, and this is what further matters, and I think further people have to understand, right? In the past, I'm not saying the past Trump indictments were not bogus, because they obviously were, but understand this, right? Before, it was about Donald Trump, things Donald Trump had allegedly done personally, right? Hush money to Stormy Daniels, allegedly, right? You know, classified documents, him personally mishandling it. This is different, because this has to do with the things he said. This has to do with him questioning the results of the 2020 election and ultimately calling for a peaceful and patriotic protest. And so this is not just about Donald Trump or them trying to politically go after Donald Trump. This has precedence for free speech, for your ability to question the government. And so that's why I think actually this is the most important Trump trial of them all. But anyways, we read here, this was his statement. I am now going to Washington, D.C. to be arrested for having challenged a corrupt, rigged, and stolen election. It is a great honor because I am being arrested for you. Make America great again. And this is very real. Now, on the topic of the trial itself, I think a lot of people have this question. Well, where's it going to go, right? Is he going to get convicted? Are they going to try to throw him in jail? Well, honestly, who knows? But I will point this out. I think there's a reason why they went through with this, because this is by far arguably one of the weaker Trump indictments of the three. But notice this. They put it in Washington, D.C. Do you think he's realistically going to get a fair trial in Washington, D.C.? Well, just to give you an idea of that, this is from Fox News. Sorry to be reading from Fox News, but they are the ones who reported it. It says, a seemingly casual greeting to the former president of the United States set social media abuzz yesterday when a judge presiding over the arraignment of former President Donald Trump referred to him as Mr. Trump. Okay, so the judge, and this is not the judge that's going to preside over the case itself, in fairness, but this does tell you a lot still, right? The judge normally, especially in a courtroom, a formal setting like that, he is the former president of the United States. You always refer to him as Mr. President, right? The judge in this case has basically gone out there and is simply only referring to him as Mr. Trump. Okay, so won't even call him Mr. President. Again, kind of tells you a lot, right? Tells you a lot about DC and kind of, I think, the trial he's about to face. And so that's my whole thing. Frankly, if I were to be totally honest with you, I think they are going to convict Donald Trump. I don't know how the New York one's going to go, although it is New York, so they'll probably honestly do that too. Miami, they say that's the strongest case they have against him, but it's Miami, so I'm sure, the case will be more balanced there, whatever. Who knows, though? I mean, obviously, it's the American regime we're talking about. Do we trust any of these people? But I think this is very telling. I virtually guarantee you, unless there is a legal motion to move the case into another district because of political reasons, which I think would be totally valid, but who knows what they'll do, right? Unless that happens, I think they're going to convict Donald Trump in this case. I think regardless, the evidence doesn't matter. The charges are totally bogus. Like I said, these are some of the weakest charges they've brought, saying that he, conspired to do whatever on, Jan 6th. But what they're going to do, in my opinion, probably is just, hey, DC, convict, right? And then you're going to go through a process where he's probably going to appeal. Who knows? It'll probably reach the Supreme Court, and I'm sure the Supreme Court would likely toss it out, although who knows? But, it is scary. And then that kind of raises a question. Even if he is at first convicted and they appeal and win, the precedent that sets for the country, it's going to get even worse. I think they're doing this hearing in about May 2024. So imagine the uproar, right? Imagine the chaos that is going to cause as he likely is about to be ready to accept the Republican nomination and, become the nominee and all that. And heading into the general election, they're probably going to, at that point, want to hand down some convictions. And I think the point very likely is just I think it's going to backfire, for the record, right? I believe more people than some of his haters want to acknowledge are going to buy the same martyrdom effect when it comes to Trump, which is that, wow, they shouldn't be doing this. This makes me sympathize with him. But regardless, I think their logic here is that let's throw a wrench in the campaign, right? Right in general election season as it's coming on, just screw with him. Totally screw it up, right? And to be totally honest with you, I know everyone always likes to say Donald Trump's so unelectable and this and that. But you look at the reasons why they're doing this. I don't trust polls, for the record, okay? So don't come to me saying, Vince, why are you trusting polls now? No, I don't trust polls still. But just as a matter of fact, Donald Trump is polling better at this point in the general election and the primaries, obviously, but the general election against Biden, he's polling better on average, better now than he did in 2020 and in 2016. Okay, so you can think of that what you will. Okay, I know that's hard to believe for some, and again, I too am a little skeptical. It's polling after all, but clearly they're scared enough to do this, right? Because why else would they be doing it? Realistically, maybe they're just that petty, sure, and I think that's a part of it. But the timing of all this is calculated, is it not? Why are they setting all the trials to be in kind of opportune times, kind of right before the general election? It's pretty obvious. I actually think this is a Hail Mary attempt, right? As much as some people will be that, Vince, that is totally unbelievable because Donald Trump is such an unelectable candidate. Maybe you're right. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not an expert on electoral politics, but I will say that, you know, I think they're looking at the same polls we are. Again, I'm not saying those polls are accurate. Who knows? But it does tell you something, right? That he's polling in a better position than he was the past 2 election cycles at this time in this point in the election cycle. So, I mean, honestly, who knows? But there's kind of the news on the Trump arraignment today. Don't have much else to say. I do want to transition here really quickly into this discussion of a Donald Trump Joe Rogan podcast. But first, let me get caught up. Let's see if we got any super chats. Okay, we did get one here. Noah for $2 says, if Trump died tomorrow, who becomes your guy? Thank you for the $2, Noah. I mean, God forbid, obviously. I don't really know. I don't think I would have a guy right off the gate, right? Maybe perhaps that's a cop-out answer, but I think I'd have to kind of see where everyone goes and think about it, right? Vivek is promising, but I have some questions about him still, right? I don't know if I'd give him my endorsement day one. You know, again, God forbid if that happens, right? I'd probably want to see more from him. I'd want him to answer certain questions about certain issues I'm skeptical of. But overall, is he probably the best candidate besides Trump the Republicans have? You know, even with, again, maybe some skepticism I have of him? Sure. But he's an option, right? Before all of this, I probably would have been fine with DeSantis, but now I'm starting to grow more and more skeptical of him, right? So there's that. And then who knows, in that situation, maybe someone else would hop in the race. It's hard to say. So I know it's a cop-out answer. Sorry for not giving you an answer, but like realistically, I don't know who I would choose. I don't know. I'd have to think about it to tell you the truth. But thank you for the $2. I appreciate it. And again, guys, if you do got questions or comments, thoughts on any of this stuff, feel free to super chat the show. It is all greatly appreciated, and it is the way, of course, that this show is made possible. So appreciate it very much. But anyways, let's transition a little bit here to this discussion of a Joe Rogan episode with Trump. So, backstory here. Everyone knows the Joe Rogan Experience. I'm sure you're aware. Most popular podcast in the world. Okay. Well, Joe Rogan very famously, in regards to this election, has said he does not want to bring Donald Trump on the podcast because he says he doesn't really want to get political or kind of help one campaign or the other. Okay. Now, here's the thing I will say. And let me actually say this, full disclaimer, I have no problems with Joe Rogan. I'm actually cool with him. I will say this, okay? Privately, we are aware of each other. You know, he was a fan of my Vice panel. I know that. So, you know, no hard feelings. I don't hate Joe Rogan, especially on a personal level by any means. But I will point this out. I think, first of all, he's missing a golden opportunity for himself to bring Donald Trump on. Obviously, we as the Trump supporters and just people who like internet content want to see it, obviously. But this is going to make him a lot of money. He would get a ton of views. It'd be one of the most talked about podcasts in history. And he said he doesn't want to do it. Why? Well, he claims he doesn't want to bring political candidates on. Now, here's what I would say. If that were his absolute standard, then even if I disagree because it's not a nonprofit, like what's the problem with it? Still, I would respect it. But here's the problem with that, is that, you know, again, this is not me bashing Joe Rogan, but I will point this out. I do not think this is really consistent, okay? He has brought presidential candidates on in the past. He brought on, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he brought on RFK Jr. this time around, who is the presidential candidate currently. And if I'm not mistaken, in 2020, from my recollection, he brought on Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, and Tulsi Gabbard. So the guy has brought on presidential candidates while they're running for president onto his show. So it's like, now you're suddenly going to say you don't want to bring presidential candidates when people want Trump on? I don't get it. I like I said, I like Joe Rogan. Okay, it's not a diss at him. But genuinely, I think that's a little bit inconsistent there, buddy. Right? I could imagine the reasons he doesn't want Trump on the podcast. Don't get me wrong. It's going to cause controversy. I don't know. Maybe he'll drop sponsors, whatever. But at the same time, Joe Rogan, even though I don't agree with all of his politics, I'll give him this. Like, Joe Rogan's not a total establishment liberal shill, right? He had plenty of times. He brings conservatives on a regular basis. He has some right-wing opinions, so and he brands himself on being a free thinker. So truly, I don't really understand it. I really don't. I don't know what the skepticism is. Maybe he's scared, he's going to get deplatformed, but it's still Trump, it's not like you're bringing on, a leader of the KKK or something, it's not. I don't understand it. But anyways, check out this exchange today. He had Patrick Bet David on the show, and here's Patrick basically trying to sell him on the idea of here's why you need to have Trump on the show. And I hope this moved the needle, because I think selfishly, yes, I believe a Donald Trump interview would be really good for his campaign, especially with young voters and all that. But at the same time, I think it's totally within Joe Rogan's self-interest to do this interview as well. They've met before. They've shook hands at UFC fights and all that. So check it out. Here's the exchange.
Having Trump on.
I don't know.
Okay. The look,
I don't know. Maybe.
Looks like you got something.
Maybe.
Okay, good. That's good. I think that's...
Look, at a certain point in time, it's just like... It would be interesting to hear his perspective on a lot of things. I would like to know, what is it like when you actually get into office? I would like to know things like, what is it like versus perception?
Yeah.
What is it actually like when you get in that building? Like, what are you greeted with? When do you know that people are fucking with you? When do you know that the intelligence agency is lying to you? Like, when you decided to fire Comey, what was the thought? How much did you know? Like, what's the machine like? What is the deep state really like?
These are all good questions.
Because we have all these, smoky room perceptions, like from the Bill Hicks joke, where they show you the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. What is the machine that runs this country? Because it's very clear that it's not as simple as elected representatives that are doing the will of the people. It's not.
Hold on, I'm stopping because I missed the super chat in the last portion, okay? Here we go. Trigonaut for $5, thank you very much, through Streamlabs, says, nominating and electing Trump is like throwing a hand grenade into the lap of the deep state. Why would you not want to give the middle finger to the very people who... Okay, it cut it off, but it is... we basically get it, right? Thank you for the $5, Trigonaut, and it is very true. Figuratively speaking, it is very true, so I 100% agree. Thank you for the $5, and it's true. You just can't run from it, right? They've done all this. They pushed us into this corner. I'm sorry that they have. I don't like that they have, okay? And you may not like that they have, but they have. So what are you going to do? Because you can say you run away, but there's nowhere to run away. This is the battle, so it is true. Thank you for the $5 Trigonaut. I appreciate it. On the front, just before we continue playing here, on the front of Joe Rogan, clearly he's thought about this. Clearly there's a lot of fascinating questions he would like to ask Donald Trump. So it's like, why don't you talk to Donald Trump? I don't understand it, right? And someone earlier said, well, Joe Rogan doesn't want to lose his Hollywood friends. I could buy that if he already brings a bunch of conservatives on the show and is friendly to them. Like Hollywood doesn't like Joe Rogan. He's faced a lot of backlash already, and he's pretty in the middle, center of the road when it comes to politics, and he makes that clear. And obviously the liberals don't like that he is kind of right wing on some issues. So I just don't get it. I don't get what the heat. Oh, he's gonna bring heat, but he's attracted a lot of heat before, right? Over the COVID stuff and all. It's not like Joe Rogan has been immune from controversy and is just rose above it. So that's why I'm a little bit like, I don't think it's very consistent. But anyways, thank you for the $5. Let's continue here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing you and Trump together.
You keep pushing that.
I think, okay, I'll tell you from my perspective, like, on why you ought to
Again,
consider
guys, if you want to super chat the show,
just
feel
give
free
you
to.
my
Okay.
Just so you know, he and I don't speak. It's not something that is like, hey, his camp saying go in there and do this and do that. No, I've never interviewed the guy, so it's not like I'm lobbying for it. But I think if when you think about sports or you think about fights, what is the boxing world if Frazier Ali never happens, right?
True.
What is the UFC world if DC John Jones doesn't happen or Khabib Conor doesn't happen? And they're both at their peak and those fights don't happen. We can go on with sports, with baseball, with, interviews of Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jackson. You go look at...
I never looked at it that
some
way,
of these
but it's
things
true.
that happen with Larry King or her and, a bunch of different guys. He's a guy that's probably the most misunderstood by a side, and a guy that...
How do you think he's misunderstood? In what way?
I think the media has really painted this guy to be evil. I like to talk to people I fully disagree with. And I think they're delusional in certain areas to understand, like, what makes you believe what you just said?
Right.
Like, I don't understand what you just said.
Right.
Tell me how you could be that convinced you're right.
Real.
Right?
Daniel McQuaid.
Cenk was on the podcast yesterday. And Cenk is convinced he's a better businessman than Trump. I mean, how could you say something? But he's convinced. And he says, no, he's a loser. Trump's a loser. I said, dude, what do you mean there's only two things he's won in his life. I said, there's only two things he's won in his life? Yes. Yeah, there's only two things he's ever won in his life. And this is the second time Cenk and I have...
This is the context, by the way. I did not react to this on the show because it just was not interesting enough. Although maybe we should. Maybe it'll be content for the weekend. But PBD had Cenk Uygur on the show from the Young Turks. I'm Cenk Uygur! Donald Trump! You know that guy? The fat guy? Okay. And Cenk went on to say that Donald Trump, and this is such a silly argument, that Donald Trump is not a good businessman and he's a loser at business because, he went bankrupt, which a lot of people do. And I'm like, okay, Cenk, you can hate the guy. I get it. You don't like Trump. You're a progressive. I'm a progressive, but I'm the real progressive. I work for the Young Turks. But how are you going to sit there and say that Donald Trump is not a good businessman? Meanwhile, while you are financially illiterate, hence a lot of your progressive politics, but still, how are you going to sit there and say he's a bad businessman? I can't stand this argument. And they say, because this is what Cenk said. He says, because Donald Trump took money from his father. The small loan of $1 million thing. Okay, realistically, if you, Cenk, and frankly, most people out there, if you were handed $1 million, most likely, what would you do? You'd spend the $1 million and maybe have a nice car and house and stuff, but that'd be it. Maybe if you're really smart, you can multiply that $1 million into a handful of $1 million. But this whole idea that Donald Trump is just made by his daddy because he turned $1 million into a tens of billion dollar worth, right, multi-billion real estate empire, that, like, most people could not do that. That's actually something only a 1% of people can do, okay? I'm so tired of this argument that, because he got handed $1 million, that made it easy for him. Sure, it's a good start. Don't get me wrong, it helps to start with $1 million. But most of you, if you were handed $1 million, you would not turn it into billions of dollars, okay? So it's just such a stupid argument. And it demonstrates such financial illiteracy, too. It really does, okay? Because I know for a fact, most of you, if you had $1 million who say this, you wouldn't invest it, much less be able to multiply it exponentially. It's a silly argument. But
we're having a conversation together. Politically, we're on very different sides. I'm just trying to find out, why do you think this way, right? And he says, only two things. He's a great marketer, and he did this. I said, first of all, 15 years, apprentice. Good luck. Go do. No, he had great producers. I don't care if you have the greatest producers in the world. You can hire any producers Joe has and go try to match Joe's numbers with podcasts. Yeah, because it's his producers. No, it's a lot of work.
It's
15
him
years.
too, yeah.
Book. How many years does Art of the Deal does? Well, yeah, but Pat, imagine if you started with $430 million. You would have been richer than him today. I said, $430 million. What's this $430 million? He got $430 million. Are you like counting in today's money versus, it's estimated this. Okay, he got $1 million. He got $14 million. No problem. He got family money. I'm willing to make the case that you are more likely to screw up your life if your family gives you money. He says, what do you mean? Yeah. I said, so I went and studied. I got 4 kids now. We're going, we've done estate planning multiple times, but now I just sold the insurance company, so I have to sit there and see, what am I going to be doing with some of this money that came out of nowhere? Goldman, Morgan, estate planning. Do we do this? Do we do that? Mm-hmm. Let's go study it. We put our research team. Go find out who did it right out of all the families. Okay. The Medici family, 7 generations, they kept the wealth within the family. What are they doing? And boom, 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 boom. Great. Vanderbilt family, the money lasted 1 generation, maybe 2. Like when, Anderson Cooper's mom's like, look.
I'm going to skip this a little bit slightly because it gets into kind of the financial talk, but it is true. Generational wealth, and it's very funny because they make this argument about systemic racism too, when in reality, generational wealth doesn't really last unless you multiply it, right? Because let's say you have $3 million. Okay, that's nice. You have $3 million and that's your inheritance. But what do most people do? They're just going to spend it, right? So they'll have a nice house, they'll buy a Ferrari, all that stuff. But then what happens for their kids? Maybe $100,000 is left. What happens a generation after that? There's no money left, right? That's what happens for most people. So the fact that Trump, yeah, his dad was well off. His dad, you know, they weren't poor growing up. But the fact that Trump took his dad, who was like relatively like decently up there in wealth, and became, you know, one of the richest people in the world off of it, that objectively proves he is a good businessman. I don't understand how anyone, like, you know, fault anything you can about Trump. You know, there's a lot of angles of attack, but to sit there and say he doesn't know business or he was not successful at business, you're just a fool. You're just objectively a fool. And all these arguments they bring up about how he inherited money literally just shows that you don't understand money, okay? Because if we gave Cenk Uyghur $1 million, he would not turn it into $10 billion or however much Donald Trump is worth. So you're wrong. He's a fool. Like,
and
objectively.
he works his ass off in business, and he makes it where he makes it to. Yeah, it's very easy to make the argument that actually if you do come with money, it's a harder life than a person that doesn't get money. To have that drive and ambition. Not necessarily it's a harder life to have that fire, the ambition that, you know, you can't teach that.
And that's why generational wealth doesn't last.
So then we go into politics. So let me get this straight. This guy wins in New York. He becomes a billionaire. He wins on TV. He's won with women. He's partied with everybody. In 1988, he's doing an interview with Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah Winfrey says, hey, you sound like you're going to run for office. No, I have no interest, but if I ever did, I'd win. Okay. Then he runs. Everybody thinks it's just a marketing deal that he's doing. And then when he wins, I don't know if you remember when he walked on, he's like, even him and himself, they were kind of like surprised. Babe, we just won.
Right.
And the day before, the odds were if you bet $100, you know, you'd have to bet $350 to win $100 on Hillary. But if you bet $100, I think you win $550 with Trump or some number like that. The underdog won, the greatest underdog of all time of politics, right? Okay. So let's fast forward 20 years from now. Let's go to 2043. We're doing a podcast. You're 75. Okay. I don't know if you're doing podcasts, but that'd be one hell of a podcast at 75. And
yeah, you can't turn them down.
Maybe we feel a little bit more comfortable coming out at that time because we're traditionalists, we're older generation. Then maybe we're a little bit more careful about what people think about us right now. But at 75, we look back and we look at the list of podcasters. Who are the greatest podcasters of all time? Joe Rogan at the top.
Yep.
GOAT. Who's the greatest this, that? And he's like, dude, but he never interviewed that guy Trump.
It's true, Joe. It's true.
I want to be like, what are you talking about? Wait, let me get this straight. The greatest podcaster of all time never interviewed Trump at a time that he
in his
didn't
prime,
do that?
right? Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's crazy. I don't believe it. Why not? It had to be personal. It had to be this. So to me, I think the guy that's going to interview him in a way that nobody else is going to interview him, you're going to ask some questions that you want to know about. Like, you know, hey, what happened with JFK? Are we really going to find out? Can you commit to us? Are you going to come out with the files or no? So I really want to know. Last time you said you did, but you only gave us 80%. Are we going to get the other 20%?
True.
Aliens. What the hell is going on with these aliens? Are we going to know or no? Can you give us a glimpse? Do you think we should know?
I don't think he'd tell you anything about that.
But what I'm saying...
I think that would be a waste of time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is whatever
Maybe
angles...
I'm wrong.
But there's nothing wrong with asking, okay? And Joe, if you don't like Trump and he doesn't answer those questions, then, you know, maybe that proves you right. Right? I don't. What's wrong with asking the question? I don't. You know, clearly, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, dude. Maybe Joe's a little bit scared, but at the same time, I don't get it because he's brought on so many right wing people. He's had Candace Owens on. He's had, you know, Matt Walsh on. So why not have Trump on? What
angles you choose to take.
Right.
Okay. It's your show. You get to take whatever angles you want to take. I think it'd be very weird to look back. There's going to be no mainstream media 20 years from now. You know that. I know that. To look back and say Joe never interviewed Trump, that's kind of weird. So yeah, that's my pitch to you.
Good. I like weird.
You like
Solid
weird?
I like
pitch.
things are weird.
I don't know about that. I think you know, I think one.
Why don't you interview him?
Why don't I interview him? I think if I give you my assessment on why.
Have you ever tried?
I'll give you my assessment on why I think.
Okay.
I think if he's him, okay, you're here, Joe. Everybody else is below you.
Yeah.
In this space, not mainstream.
Joe's
in
number one.
mainstream,
Yeah.
He'll do Tucker. He'll do, you know, Megyn Kelly, whatever. I don't know if he's done Megyn Kelly. He hasn't done it, but he'll do Tucker. He'll do Brett Baer. He'll do Hannity. He'll do all that stuff. But in this lane we're in, you have to do you first.
Right.
Then comes everybody else.
Right.
He can't do that.
So you're holding everyone
so
up.
I
Come
think
on.
we come after you come. If I'm his advisor, I would advise him. You can't go to anybody else unless you go to Joe first. And I'm telling you, from a perspective of if I'm his counsel, I would say you go to Joe, then you go XYZ. Everybody else is XYZ Joe. You're Joe. Everyone else is XYZ. Okay? And I think he knows that, and I think the person in control right now is not him.
It's you.
Like the person in control
It's
with
you.
Hunter is Hunter's camp, not you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, Hunter, no, Joe, whoever gets to say no, they're in control.
Right.
So, but from your perspective, what's going on in America today, I would say if you don't do the podcast with him, you're helping the establishment and you're helping a guy named Joseph Biden.
Yeah.
I think you're helping that person.
Yep.
That's kind of weird.
Come on, Rogan.
But indirectly in your mind,
you can do it.
You're helping Joseph Biden win by not interviewing Trump.
Did you come on this podcast specifically to
No.
try to get me to interview Trump?
No, you brought up Trump multiple times. I never brought it up.
It seems like you did. I think you did.
Well, if he did, I wouldn't hate him for it. But, I just, like I said, I don't get it. It is totally within your self-interest, Joe Rogan, right? And you can play it off, too. Look, you can play it off. You can say, well, yes, I had Trump on. I've also had Bernie Sanders on when he was running for president. I had RFK on, right? You can just say it's a platform. He's the front runner of the GOP. I think you can write that off, to tell you the truth. I think you can brush that off with whoever is coming after you. And people, by the way, Joe Rogan, they want to cancel you anyway because they also know that you sometimes have independent thoughts of your own, and the liberals still don't like you regardless. So like, what do you have to quote Donald Trump? What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose at this point? You don't have anything to lose, frankly, because you're not going to lose much from interviewing Trump, especially considering all you got to say is, look, I've interviewed all the candidates. Biden can come on the show too. That's fine. Like, people will accept that. Well, probably not, but it's enough. It's enough, right? Think about everything you have to gain. It would be one of the most watched interviews in history, if not the most watched interview in history. You clearly are curious. You brought up questions that you want to ask him, right? And PBD brings up a great point. People are going to look at this decades from now when you're remembered as the biggest podcaster in history, and the guy who basically started some of this sphere in many ways. But he didn't interview Trump. But he didn't do the Trump interview, right? Forget the whole it's even helping Biden argument, though it is. And I know you don't like Biden, Joe Rogan, but still, forget that argument. Think about even yourself, okay? That's rule number one of, not rule number one, but one of the rules of business and power and all that stuff, right? Always appeal to people's self-interest. It is within your self-interest to do this, Joe, so I don't know why he won't. But let me know your thoughts. If you're watching live in the live chat, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments if you're watching on the replay. But I just think this needs to happen, and I don't see why it's not. And again, no problems with Joe Rogan, but I think he's being a little bit inconsistent about this. But let me know your thoughts. And yeah, would love to see it. Would certainly love to see it. But okay, guys. Well, before we move on here, we're going to talk about the South Africa stuff in a second. But I know we missed some super chats, so let's get caught up here on our super chats. Daniel McQuaid for $2.79 Canadian says, "Orange man bad, Mudge Rumpf." This is true. I don't think that's how Joe Rogan feels, though. He has kind of a mixed opinion on Trump. I get it. He doesn't totally like the guy. But I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what it is. And clearly there's something there that he just doesn't want to say either. I don't get it. I do get it. I kind of know why. But I don't get why Joe Rogan is scared about it, because he hasn't been scared about other stuff, right? And it'd be one thing if he's never been canceled before, if he was like Oprah Winfrey, the liberal Hollywood never came for him. I get it. But he's already faced so much backlash, right? There's already a bunch of left-wingers who have wanted him canceled forever, and they tried, right? Remember Neil Young tried to get him pulled from Spotify and all that. So it's not like he's not gone through the cancellation tour many times, because he has. That's why I don't get his reservation about it. That's why I don't get it. You guys see? I don't know, guys. I don't know. It would be so good for business. It really would. You know? Because how many people are you going to interview the same time? And not even to get personal, okay? I do, like I said, personally, me and him have spoken before. We're cool with each other. But you're going to do the same podcast, interviewing, talking about bears all the time, right? This is the chance to do something different, you know? You're a podcaster who interviews people. Why would you not want the people who are going to bring the most views? That's the point of it, right? Talk to interesting people. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I really don't get it, man. But thank you for the $2.79 Canadian. It is true. Heather Guard for $2, thank you very much, says, jumping the gun, but how do we help the South Africans? Good question, Heather. I mean, let me be totally real with you. I think if the United States already does this whole process of boycotting, of sanctioning, of doing all this stuff, then why don't we do it for the South African government? Why don't we do it for the South African government? Do we give foreign aid to South Africa? I don't know, but we certainly should pull it if this is happening, right? So I think that's what we should do. And, you know, I'm not in favor of refugee resettlement in general, don't get me wrong. But the way I see it, if we're going to resettle all these different refugees from, you know, Latin America and the Middle East from the wars and all that stuff, but you won't resettle the Boers, something weird is inconsistent there. So, you know, it is true. Thank you for the $2. I appreciate it very much. And, you know, let's be totally real. South Africa doesn't want to become a pariah state anymore. I mean, that's a big reason why they kind of gave over, you know, majority control and ended apartheid in the first place, because there was immense international pressure to do that, right? And that's why, you know, they handed over, gave up their nuclear weapons, all that stuff. So if you make them a pariah state again, you know this stuff will stop. They don't want to go through that again. There's a reason they ended it the first time. So, you know, frankly, but the problem is all of the ways to help the Boers in South Africa are contingent on the idea that the United States government genuinely does want to step in and help, which of course they don't. So that's the issue, right? But thank you for the $2, Heather Guard. And we got Daniel McQuaid for $6.99 Canadian, says, I wish Donald Trump was as cool and conservative as the liberals, hiccups, make him out to be. They make him out to be like a Francisco Franco-like character. This is true. Thank you for the $6.99 Canadian, Daniel McQuaid. Yeah. Imagine, you know, they always, you know, no, the funniest comparison is when they compared him to Julius Caesar, which they've done a lot. Remember the Great MAGA King? Remember that whole thing? Yeah, I wish he would be the Great MAGA King. That would be awesome. Imagine he rides across the Potomac with his army of legionaries and says, I am the Senate. I am the Senate. Okay? That would be pretty funny and cool, but you know, he's not on that level. Okay, he's not on that level. Thank you for the $6.99 Canadian. And the Tech Boy sends in a $1 super chat. I appreciate it very much, Tech Boy. All right, folks, again, if you guys do want to support the show, we're about to do full super chat Q&A portion here in a second. So any questions, comments, anything you want to send in, feel free to do so, because we're almost at 9 o'clock and we will move on fully to all that discussion. But first, we got to get to this talk about South Africa, ladies and gentlemen. So the other night on the show, and I covered it also in a video today, we've talked about this video of the communist minority leader in South Africa chanting about, you know, they don't want us to use this term, but it is true, basically chanting to openly want to have hatred and just violence, right? Killing white people, okay? So, but if you haven't seen it, let's play this video one more time again. And by the way, YouTube, as a full disclaimer, I'm playing this for journalistic purposes, okay? It's reporting. I obviously disavow violence, disavow all of this. But check it out. This is a minority political leader in South Africa chanting to kill the Boer, kill the farmer, shoot and kill. These are his words again, disavow, but check it out. If you haven't seen this, let's play it again to refresh.
Alliance shoot to kill Hamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. Attention.
So I'm sure most of you guys have seen that, but if you have not seen, you're seeing that for the first time, yeah, that's what happened in South Africa this week. You got this communist leader in a stadium full of hundreds of thousands, not hundred, but probably actually close to 100,000 people. It's a full soccer stadium, all collectively chanting to kill the Boer, who is the white minority in South Africa, shoot to kill the white farmer, burr, pa, gun noises, all of that stuff. Okay. So you immediately look at that video and think to yourself, okay, so they're calling for the genocide of the white people in that country, right? Like there's no world in which anyone should defend this or support this who doesn't just outright want, obviously, those things to happen. But the defense I've seen, we're going to talk about this in a second, but the defense I've seen this week about that chant is them saying, listen to this. This is what they've been saying to defend this video. They've been saying, oh, well, that song used to date back to the apartheid days, and it's like an artistic expression. This is what they say. It's an artistic expression because we're trying to start a conversation and we're trying to relate, I don't know, to the past militant struggle against the Boer majority and all of that different stuff. And this is what they're trying to say. I heard one person make the excuse that, well, if you look at American Civil War music, the South had songs about killing Yankees. The Union had songs about killing rebels. And, people can sing those songs today, can't they, right? To which I say, yeah, but where do they sing them? In a Civil War reenactment, right? Here's the thing. Yes, perhaps if you're bringing back that old song from the apartheid days when they were like militantly fighting each other and you had arm rebellion and all that stuff. Okay, if you were bringing that up for the purposes of reenactment, right? If you're trying to reenact, I don't know, the battles or whatever, the Boer Wars or whatever you're trying to reenact, okay, fine, I can understand that argument, to which you're singing it for artistic purposes. But this is not that, right? This is a political rally. This is a politician in South Africa gathering with a bunch of his political supporters, getting together and singing this song about killing the Boers. So how can you justify that or say that's in any way an artistic expression? It's not an artistic expression. That's ridiculous, okay? What you're very clearly calling for now is the killing of Boers or whatever it is now. At the very least, you're calling for violence now. And that's pretty explicit and pretty clear. I don't understand how anyone can defend this, but I saw even people on the right wing saying I was taking this out of context. They're singing it to sympathize with the people who were fighting under apartheid. Okay, but what were the people under apartheid doing? Likewise, they were committing violence. Okay, they're committing violence against white people and against the government. So if you're singing this now, saying we want to channel back the energy of people, and this is a thread I actually saw. Someone was saying that. They're saying, they're not trying to kill all the Boers. They're just trying to channel back the energy of the people back then. What were the people back then doing? They were killing Boers. Okay, so if you're singing the song now and you're trying to channel that past energy, you're saying you want violence, you're saying you want militancy, you're saying you want to kill the Boer. I don't see how that's any different, right? It's just ridiculous the level of gaslighting they try to do about it. It's the same way in America when they say, oh, when they're burning the American flag, they're trying to be patriotic about it, It's actually the patriotic thing to do because it's free speech. The whole just, we're clearly doing this thing, but don't take us seriously. We're not doing this thing, even though we're clearly doing this thing. It's the same old song and dance. But, that's what we've seen the past week or so in defense of this stuff. Anyways, want to react to this. So Elon Musk has gone out there and said that, look, if you didn't see his tweet, he went out and said that they're calling for genocide of white people in South Africa. It's wrong. People need to talk about it. It's not something that can be ignored. But just to give you an idea of how crazy this stuff is, here is that same politician who you saw in that video leading the chant, just going out there and saying, he called Elon Musk an illiterate, okay? Because apparently this guy's not illiterate, but Elon Musk is illiterate. The richest person in the world is illiterate. But here he is doubling down on it. And listen to just, even if you thought that was a video out of context, listen to how hateful this individual is here. Understand, he's a growing political leader in South Africa. Who knows how long he's the minority. He may become the majority pretty soon. But take a listen to him.
I will sing this song as
oops, my bad.
when I feel like. It's not my song. It's a struggle song. I saw some McG wanna be one of these podcast people who failed with the very low followers for so his relatives only that are following him. He says, I must educate Elon Musk. What is that? No, the one of Twitter. Elon Musk. I must educate Elon Musk. Why must I educate Elon Musk? He looks like an illiterate.
He looks like an illiterate. Yeah. Elon Musk, of all things you could say, certainly is illiterate, right? He's definitely not smart. Okay.
The only thing that protects him is his white skin.
Wait, let's play that again. Let's listen to how. Obviously, you could say, "Oh, but Vince is not violent." Perhaps, but listen to just how hateful this is.
Musk. He looks like an illiterate. The only thing that protects him is his white skin. Elon Musk wants to learn about this song. The records are there in court. Let him go and read the judgment. Let him go and listen to my arguments in court. I will say.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just totally artistic, bro, right? You say this, so is that symbol behind you too? Because I look at the symbol behind him. He has a Marxist fist with a spear on it. It's literally like a violent thing. And he's singing songs about kill the boar. But it is not this. We are not violent. Yes, you are, dude. Like, what do you... And, you know, you contrast that with the headlines very constantly you see, and it is rising, right? The hate crimes against boars in South Africa. There's no planet on which you can justify or make excuses for this, folks. There's not. There's not. You should not be singing a song that... I don't care what the history of the song is, because the history of the song, you know, think whatever you will about stuff that went on back then, but the history of the song is itself still violent. You're singing a song about killing the boars and killing the white farmer, okay? And honestly, YouTube, disavow all violence and, you know, whatever. But maybe it would be different if you're trying to say now, no, our beef is with the government. Our beef is with the majority party or the system or something like that. Okay, then why not revise the song to be about doing whatever about the government or the ANC, that's the majority party there, or whatever it is. No, they won't do that. They're singing the same song about killing the boar, who are just random white people in South Africa, and even killing the farmers, right? Why would you even make that your chant? Because, you know, if you claim our qualm is with the politicians, then why aren't you, not, again, disavow, not saying you should do that either, YouTube, but why are you not singing about the politicians at least? Or the government, or the majority party? They're talking about, in their words, kill the farmer, right? And what's happening in South Africa currently, by the way, what happens several times every year? Killing of farmers, killing of random innocent white farmers who are not in positions of power, they're not elected to government, but just because they own farmland, just because they own land, they get killed. It happens a lot in South Africa. It's a huge problem. And you think it's responsible for your artistic expression that I'm totally not trying to endorse, by the way, it's a figure of speech, to go out there and say, kill the farmer, right? Why is that even your enemy? If as people are trying to say, their qualm is with the government. They're trying to speak out against their corrupt government there. Okay, I'd still say you're a degenerate scumbag communist, so I'm not really good. That doesn't really win my sympathy. People say they're singing it as an anti-government song. Okay, maybe I'm sure the government in South Africa is very corrupt, but you're a communist. So it's not gonna win my sympathy there, buddy. But still, anyway. Okay, then why are you not singing a song about the government? They're not. They're saying kill the farmer. Like how much more direct? I know I'm getting heated, but how much more direct can it get? No, it's artistic. No, they're protesting against the systems that be. You're saying in the song to kill the farmer. By the way, that's not very Marxist of you. Well, in some ways it is, but you know what I mean, right? The random farmer who just owns land, a lot of them are old. They're just trying to live off the land, live their lives. And you're singing a song about killing them and saying that it's protesting the government. It's the same way in which, it's very similar to, when we loot people's random businesses and destroy their livelihoods and ruin their lives, we're really trying to protest against corrupt and racist systems in police departments. The same exact nonsense. Doesn't it sound very familiar? But anyways, it just to show you this, in case, just to show you it's not a conspiracy theory and we're not exaggerating, we're not exaggerating the problem that you face these people face in South Africa. We have this here from N Wokeness. He reports South African farmer Theo Becker, who was 79, was brutally murdered by 4 thugs yesterday. So this is a day after, 24 hours after the EFF leader Julius Malema told a crowd, that's the guy you saw in the video, told a crowd of 90,000 people to kill the boar, kill the white farmer. What happened? A South African farmer was killed. Okay, so I'm not saying they necessarily, I mean, we don't know, so I'm not going to assume that they just inherently did it because of this, because of the chant, but there's a strong possibility. How could you say that it's not a possibility? And, you know, even if it's not, clearly it's a big problem in South Africa. Even if this was not directly caused by it, but although you could make a strong case, it's definitely possible. If this is a problem in your country and you're trying to say that we're not really for that, right? If your goal is not to encourage this and cause more of this to happen, then why would you chant that? It's just so silly. It's so ridiculous. There is no argument. There's no defense. There's simply no defense, okay? But anyways, just want to give you the updates there. Of course, we certainly pray for the Boers in South Africa. We pray for their safety. And I truly wish the U.S. government did something to help. But of course, you know, especially considering people might say, Vince, that's not America first. Perhaps it's not. But I watched the U.S. government intervene in all sorts of stupid nonsense, okay? You know, democracy in Ukraine and all this random stuff. So, and by the way, we claim to be, even though it's kind of nonsense, obviously, we always just act in our self-interest at the end of the day, or the self-interest of the people in power. But we, you know, as the United States at least claim to be this like benevolent interventionist where we intervene for democracy and human rights. How can we as a regime say that and then be totally silent about this? So that's why I say I wish the U.S. government would step in and do something, especially since we always tell ourselves we're all about righteousness and equality and justice all around the world. But of course, it's nonsense. Of course, perhaps you could argue that's just simply never been true. And it is what it is. Vince Dow, have you seen the video of the road in South Africa with all the crosses for all the farmers that died? It's miles long. I actually did see that. I didn't prepare that in tonight's show, but I did see that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, it's very tragic. And to people who say it's not a real problem, right? That's the thing too. If you point this out, here's the worst part of it all. If you just simply point this out, it's controversial for me to even talk about because they've made it. A lot of these left-wing anti-hate groups have made it into this thing where if you acknowledge that white farmers are killed in South Africa and you see an open video here, they're saying kill the boar, kill the farmer. If you talk about that, that's alt-right. That's an alt-right conspiracy theory. You're not allowed to mention that. So, you know, I guess they're not brown enough. They're not brown enough for the U.S. government to care about them, unironically. And if you do care about them because you care about people and you care about human beings, you know, that's morally wrong. Anyways, before we move into our last story, this is going to discuss this really quickly, but I know we did get some super chats, so let's get caught up here with our super chats, and then I will really briefly, not for too long, but I'll very briefly talk about this alleged Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom debate they're trying to set up. But first, let me get caught up on the super chats that we missed during this segment. So we have got, folks, $2 from Republican Thinker says, it was announced yesterday that Justin Trudeau was divorced. I did see that story, actually. I did see that. Is anyone surprised, folks? You know, Justin Trudeau is, I want to say a certain word that starts with a B, but we'll just say, you know, for the sake of not using profanity, we'll say he's a little weenie, okay? Justin Trudeau's wife has never respected him. And even if perhaps that she at one point did, it's certainly the case now that there is no respect there. And so, you know, this is just simply true. So I'm not surprised by that at all. But I have heard rumors, you know, some people have been speculating it's actually because he's in the closet, and that's really what it has to do with. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I know for some reason there's this whole line that Justin Trudeau is handsome, and, you know, I'm not a girl, nor am I gay, so I'm not exactly here to judge, you know, whatever guys. But to me, the guy just looks like a sissy, right? You know, he just soft face, no testosterone. He doesn't speak like he has any. He certainly doesn't act like he has any. And so it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it was simply a matter of his wife didn't respect him, which happens and certainly would happen to him. But the other rumors, you know, it's definitely believable to me. So who knows? But thank you for the $2. I appreciate it. I don't know. Maybe it'll wake Justin Trudeau up in the slim chance. Let's be real. It's not going to happen. But thank you for the $2, Republican Thinker. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, JD for $5 says, let me read it here. Mass immigration into the West is a slow but blank of blank people. South Africa is just bold about their intentions and views. Thank you for the $5, JD. I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, let's be real. I've made this argument the other night, and I'll make it again. Yeah, America is certainly next. Anyone who doesn't think that this is not coming to America, you're delusional, right? Look at what they're teaching now in America already. Look at what they're saying. Look at what Disney's saying about, slavery and critical race theory. We know now we call it critical race theory. Now it's more so of an academic thing. Here's why black people need reparations and all this stuff. And in 1619, America was built on the backs of slaves and racism and eradicate whiteness. This is the words that they use, all this stuff. For now, that's the rhetoric that you hear, right? It's more academic. But inherently, what is it teaching? Hatred, right? And what's the slippery slope of that going to be? You're teaching all the new generations to hate, all this different stuff. Realistically, you're about a decade or two, in my opinion, away from this being normal in America. It's true. It's true. People say it can't happen. Well, people said a lot of things can't happen. People said, in 1997, people thought that a federal legalization of gay marriage was crazy. Okay. People said that wouldn't happen. So if you look at South Africa today and say that can't happen, then I think you're the one who's delusional and crazy. I think you're the conspiracy theorist for saying that it's not going to happen. That's actually quite irrational of you. But thank you guys for the super chats. Again, we're going to do full Q&A and super chat portion in a second. So if you want to send them in now, again, questions, comments, or just support you want to send into the show, feel free to do so. We're going to do our Q&A and chat portion here in a second. One last thing I did want to mention here, though, is that as of last night, Ron DeSantis has announced he's going to participate in a 2-hour debate against Gavin Newsom. Okay, so check it out.
You heard Gavin make the offer. Your answer is?
Absolutely. I'm game. Let's get it done. Just tell me when and where. We'll do it.
You heard.
Okay, so there you go. Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis have agreed to a debate. All right? Now, listen, on paper, there's no reason Ron DeSantis shouldn't win the debate. Florida, politically and economically, is thriving. California is a third world disaster. So I will say, Ron, you can't screw it up. Okay, that's what I'll say. Although, I will tell you my concern, and some DeSantis people get really mad at me for saying this, but I will tell you my concern. Yes, Ron DeSantis is going to be right about all the issues over Gavin Newsom. Obviously, Florida is being run better than California. The one thing, though, Ron DeSantis has to look out for is, he himself, what's the criticism of him? He's a little bit nerdy of a guy. He's awkward, all of that stuff. Look, Gavin Newsom is an absolute sleazeball, okay? He's literally one of the most scummy people in politics. But do give him credit for this. He objectively looks cooler and comes off as a cooler guy than Ron DeSantis does, okay? So so I just will say, I'm not saying it'll doom him, but this is something that you're going to have to watch out for if you're Ron DeSantis. But, for two things. First of all, as hyped as this sounds, and that sounds great, right? DeSantis and Newsom are doing a debate, and we'll certainly react to it on this channel. Truthfully, to tell you the truth, especially if it's 2 hours long, I think the whole thing's actually going to be pretty boring, okay? Like, let's be real. If you guys agree with me on that, I all the hype that's going to go into this, I actually think it's not nearly going to be as entertaining as people are expecting. That's what I'll say, number one. What I'll say, number two, this really is the last chance for DeSantis to do anything in this campaign. I think if this flops in terms of not just him winning the debate, but him really making waves and garnering attention, I think it's over at that point. It probably already arguably has been over throughout all these Trump indictments and stuff, but clearly DeSantis has not wanted to do this in the past. Now he's saying yes. Clearly this is him trying to, give his last attempt to make some waves in this primary. But who knows? We'll see. Because that's my thing. Even if Ron DeSantis overcomes, there's the technical concerns I have about him, just optically not being as quote unquote cool a guy as Gavin Newsom is, even though Ron DeSantis is right about everything. Even if he overcomes that, he can't just win the debate. He has to dominate the debate, right? Because he can't just be, if you're him, you can't just be wanting to just win, on issues. You have to make moments. It has to be memorable. It has to truly make waves. And I don't think a 2-hour debate with Gavin Newsom is going to do that, sadly. You know, even if DeSantis does win, well, I shouldn't say sadly, because I'm not rooting for him in the primary. I'm a Trump guy, but you know what I mean, right? Sadly, if you're him, I don't know if it's going to do that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, obviously. I mean, do you guys think that it's going to go somewhere? Are you guys interested? I don't know. Let me know. I mean, we'll certainly, when it happens, if it does actually happen, I'm fine watching it on this channel. But to tell you the truth, I don't think it's going to be very entertaining. Okay, it's actually, as hyped as it sounds, I think it's actually going to be quite boring. And, you know, it is what it is. But I'm sure, you know, it's certainly... Ron DeSantis wants to try to rescue the campaign, so I definitely understand what he's doing. I don't know if it's going to work. I think it's actually going to be boring. But those are my thoughts. All right, guys, it is 9:08 p.m. We'll do super chats here for about 15 or so minutes. So anything you want to send in, we're now open. We're open for Q&A, open for super chats. Feel free to send them in, ladies and gentlemen, because we're all wrapped up, and we'll close here with our Q&A portion. So any thoughts you guys have on Trump, on this debate, on South Africa, feel free to do so. J.R. Majewski. Is that the real J.R. Majewski? I'd have to imagine that's not the real J.R. Majewski. But if that's the real J.R. Majewski, shout out to J.R. Majewski. Anyways, he says, Vince, what are your thoughts on the Italian-American Mafia? Funny story about the Italian-American Mafia. I found out when I was in California this weekend, I found out I had way more family who were in the mafia than I thought I was. I've told you guys for a while about my Uncle Vinny, right? He's passed. The only reason I'm saying these names is because they're all dead, okay? I ain't no snitch. Don't worry, guys. I ain't no snitch, okay? But I told you guys my Uncle Vinny, the last Vince in my family. My Uncle Vinny, I guess great uncle or great Uncle Vinny. Something like that. It's okay. But uncle, I think it's great uncle, okay? But I told you guys about how he was a mafia. Okay, and he used to have a new black Cadillac every month, and he had a gold Rolex that he'd hang out like this, and, you know, mysteriously, he had a business that didn't seem like it made a lot of money, but he was very wealthy and had a bunch of property and Cadillacs, and, you know, okay. But I thought that was the only mafioso in my family. Turns out that's not the case at all. We were with my grandpa this weekend, and he was in a conversation with my dad and just telling me the stories about, yeah, it was Uncle Bill and then Uncle Vinny and then Uncle Johnny. It was like all these people. And so it turns out, actually, most of the people in my family, besides my direct lineage, right? My great-grandfather was never mafia. My grandpa was never mafia. But a ton of my family around, like all the guys were mafia. So it actually turns out, like, I thought it was just Uncle Vinny, which was enough for me because I'm like, haha, that's cool, right? The last Vinny in my family was mafia. Okay, well, you know, we'll take it, right? So I can be Vinny too, right? In Minecraft, of course. I'm not involved in the Italian mafia, but still. But no, it turns out I have a bunch of family in who were in the mafia back then, and you heard some funny stories back then. So yeah, and to my knowledge, none of them ever got caught. So, you know, we all made it out. What can we say? We all made it out. We won the game. All right. What are my thoughts on the Italian-American Mafia? I mean, I don't care to comment. Okay, no comment. Those are my thoughts. No comment. All right. The one comment I will make, okay, think what you will, but New York City would literally be safer if the Italian mafia and all the different ethnic mafias just ran their own neighborhoods than they would be under NYPD and Alvin Bragg. Okay, so let me just say that. Okay. New York City was a safer place when the mafia ran it. So think what you will of the mafia, but that's just my belief. And I think it's objectively true when you look at murder rates, unironically. But Tech Boy for $2, thank you very much. Tech Boy, who says, Jets versus Browns. Who do you want to win? I don't really have a vested interest in either the Jets or the Browns. Thank you for the $2. I guess I'll root for the Browns because the Browns always have sucked for a long time. I mean, I know they got a little better the past few years, but you got to feel bad for the Browns, right? Always a down franchise. Always, I guess the Jets are too. But I don't know. The Browns are Cleveland, right? It's middle America versus New York. Fine. I guess I'll root for the Browns. I don't really care either way. I haven't watched the NFL in a very long time. Who's even still on the Browns? Because last I remember it was Baker Mayfield, but he's now in where? Tampa Bay, right? Is Sam Darnold still at the Jets? This is how long it's been since I've seen the NFL. I don't even know what's happening there. But also, go Astros. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you for the $2. Tech Boy. Again, guys, we are open to Super Chats here, which we will go till about 9:20, 9:30 with the Super Chats. So, feel free to do those. Does he swim with fish now? Well, all of my former mafioso family swim with the fish. They swim with the fishes. They do, but not because they got whacked, just because they died of old age. They all died of old age, okay? I come from a family of winners. We truly do. We're survivors. Because my grandpa, my Italian grandpa, he fought in Vietnam, right? So and he's seen a lot of combat, by the way. He's not one of those people who didn't fight anyone. He was a patrol boat captain, saw a ton of combat. He made it out. My great grandpa fought for the United States. We're already in the United States. He fought for the United States in World War II, killed a bunch of Germans, saw a bunch of combat, and they survived. And then the mafia in my family also just survived of old age. So what can we say? We're a family of survivors. What can we say? You know? We're an expert on not swimming with the fishes. Vince, there is no mafia. This is true. Italian, I don't know what the Italian mafia is, and I've never heard of that. So, you know. This is real. All right, anyways. Take a sip of water here. Let's see. Did you see the body? No, I did not see the body. Most of these people died before they died when I was alive, but when I was very young. And I never went to any of their funerals because I didn't even know who these people were. But, you know, it's true. Rest in peace, Uncle Vinny. Okay. All the stories I hear, of course, I'm not in the mafia, but all the stories I hear, me and Uncle Vinny were pretty similar people. So, he liked watches, I liked watches. He liked nice cars, I like nice cars. He had a way with the ladies, I have the way with the ladies. So, I'm him. What can I say? I'm him. Thoughts on Florida's AP Psych ban? They banned AP Psych. Why'd they ban that? Is it because of there's like trans stuff in it now? I don't know. I don't have thoughts because I don't know why they banned it. Because when I took it, it was pretty benign. Like there was no whatever. But they probably have added new stuff in the curriculum. So I don't know. I remember that class was an easy 5, but I don't know. I'd have to hear why, because it's been a few years since I took that class. So let's take a look. All, if not most, real mafia criminals get locked up at some point. Oh, you mean the ones you hear about? Huh? You mean the ones you hear about? True. Well, Fernandez, if it doesn't work on PayPal, you can just send it on YouTube. I mean, it's fine. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you trying. You have Cash App? I do have Cash App. It's thevincedao. It's $ thevincedao. And that's my Venmo too. So this is real. Tech Boy for $2 says thoughts on Allie Beth Stuckey. I have no problems with her. I like her. I think she makes a lot of solid content. And I think we're mutuals too. So yeah, I mean I'm cool with her. I think she's pretty solid on the issues. I mean, so yeah, thank you for the $2. Let's take a look. Dirty Mike says thoughts on me cutting the grass tomorrow or waiting until Sunday. I don't know. Who cares? I don't think there's a problem with. I mean, if you should probably cut the grass on your day off. So I don't see a problem either way. The great Uncle Vinny never got locked up. This is true. Teflon Vinny. Okay. Teflon Vinny. Your Geographic Scotsman says, Vince Dow, do you recognize Taiwan as a rebellion? By the way, do you approve of the United States wasting their aid in Ukraine since Russia allies with many recourses like China or Iran? Okay, this might be a hot take with you, Scotsman, but I actually recognize Taiwan as the rightful heir to China, okay? And this is not me advocating for really anything from a United States foreign policy perspective. I think we should get microchip production out of Taiwan. But that whole divide, you know, forget any neoconservative stuff these days. I'm not saying I'm, you know, endorsing any of that. But that whole divide goes back to the Cold War, okay? And the Mao Zedong's uprising against, you know, the Chinese nationalists, I view that as the rebellion, truthfully. So I know it'd be a hot take with you. I view that as the rebellion. There are communist scum originally, at least that's where the government, you know, I'm not, you know, the CCP nowadays, they're authoritarian. I don't know if I'd call them communists, but still, they're the descendants, right, of what I consider to be illegitimate China. I'm not saying that the United States should go and overthrow a regime change or whatever, but if you ask me, like, the way I view it, no, the Taiwanese can trace back, you know, they're the original heirs to China, that degenerate, idiot, scumbag, you know, murderer Mao Zedong, you know, managed to overthrow and then tried to destroy all of China's old tradition and legacy and history and all of that stuff. So I don't recognize Taiwan as an active rebellion. I recognize them as the inheritor of the true China. And, you know, like I said, that's not, you're just asking my opinion on it. I'm not saying the United States should step in and try to put Taiwan back into power, put that government back into power in China, but I view it as the opposite. I view it as the opposite. Mao Zedong was a dirtbag and, you know, basically an enemy of civilization. And that's the way I feel about some of the Cold War stuff, you know. I think we need to separate a lot of the Cold War from modern American foreign policy. Because what is American foreign policy now, right? Oh, spread democracy to the Middle East and, you know, make sure Islamic countries don't guide by their traditions. But back then, you know, it was about stopping the spread of the ideology that is the enemy of Christianity, the enemy of Western civilization, the enemy just of humanity in general. And we're going to equate that with, like, America being globalist and, you know, spreading feminism around the world or whatever it is today. I don't think the two are equal at all. So if I was around during the Cold War, I would have sided with all the nationalists against all of the communists, you know? Whether that's in Cuba, which, by the way, it's very strange. If the United States was ever going to intervene, this is part of why, yes, Cold War policy at times was stupid. Why did we intervene in Vietnam but not Cuba? You had a communist revolution miles from our shores. If you're going to step in and stop anything, I'd say you stop that. But it's like we let that happen in Cuba, but we fight in Vietnam. It doesn't make. And then, yeah, but so there are things we did wrong. Okay. We should have not backed away from Dinh Diem or Bautista because they're too authoritarian. Forget that. Okay, you're trying to stop, again, the enemy of civilization. So, you know, there's mistakes we made during the Cold War, and there's things we should have done differently. But you asked me the fundamental question. No, I don't view Taiwan as the rebellion. I view the mainland Chinese as the rebellion because, yeah, whatever you think of it today, it traces its roots back to, you know, a war where I've totally would have been on the side of the Chinese nationalists. So, you know, that's kind of how I feel about it. That conflict in China goes back to the start of the 1900s after their rebellion against the Qing. It's Qing dynasty, right? But it is true. Really, yes, ideally, we should just bring the dynasties back to China, okay? You know, you have these dynasties for thousands of years, and then what do they just disappear? It sucks. We need all the old European monarchies back. I know some of you Americanists will say, no, we don't like monarchy. Monarchy is traditional, okay? Even if you don't want the United States, like, objectively, the world was better off when most civilizations had their traditional forms of government, okay? So that applies in China. That applies in Europe. You know, if you want to do your thing in the United States, fine. But it's just kind of sucks, actually. Kind of sucks. And partially because America has this loyalty to, we got to spread democracy around the world. That actually screwed up a lot of the world when you think about it, right? Think about something like decolonization, okay? Again, think what you will. Maybe this is controversial, but are most of, let's say, Britain's former colonies, there's a few you could look at and say, okay, they're doing all right for themselves. Are most of Britain's former colonies doing better now that Britain is left? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, most of them are third world disasters, okay? But who led the push for decolonization? Partially, it was self-inflicted. Also, part of it, though, was America, because we were there saying, no, we had self-determination, so they should too. The rest of the world's not America, okay? So I don't know. There have been mistakes made along the way, is my point. But fundamentally, you know, I'm pro-nationalist in China. Okay, till the end of the day. But Brian for $10, thank you very much, says, Vince, you sound like you'd be cold-blooded AF if you were in the mafia. Well, who says I'm not cold-blooded now? Huh? Better watch. Y'all better watch. Just kidding. But anyways, question. What do you think of a Vice President Vivek, assuming Trump wins the GOP nomination? You think people will like him? Thank you for the $10. I appreciate it very much, Brian. Vivek would be, I think he'd be one of the better candidates. The only problem I think with Vivek is that Trump is already an outsider, right? And so, you know, you're going to make your vice president someone who also, he's not in political office. He doesn't have a political career, all of that stuff. I don't know. It'd be an interesting pick, right? It'd be better than a lot of the people that are on the short list. It's better than Nikki Haley. It's better than Elise Stefanik, right? But ideally, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I think the ideal pick is someone like Glenn Youngkin, right? Because Glenn Youngkin, you look at him, he's kind of a politician, which I think you kind of need to complement Trump, right? Because Trump's when you choose a running mate, you want someone who kind of fills your weaknesses, right? Politician, but also a likable one. He's not totally awkward. He's not, you know, totally lacking of charisma. A likable one, does well with suburban women, you know, kind of softens Trump image on that front. Vivek, I don't think it's the worst pick in the world. I think it's one of the better picks. But the only problem I'd have on that front is that really the best for him? Because he himself kind of a no-name already and never been a politician before, and you're going to make him the vice president, right? Usually if you're an outsider, you want more of an establishment vice president just to compliment you on the ticket. So, you know, I'm kind of mixed on it. I think he'd be one of the better ones, but he's not the perfect one in my opinion. But, you know, like I said, I'd certainly prefer him over a lot of the people they're suggesting right now, right? A lot of these, you know, we need someone like Tim Scott. No, that's a terrible idea, you know. Let's just choose a total neocon because that's electable. No, I don't buy that. I think Vivek's better than most of them, but the only reservation I have is you're already Donald Trump. You're already the outsider, and then you're going to choose someone who's like not even a politician. I suppose in a way you can double down, right? You can double down on the whole I'm against the system thing, but I don't know. I think he should just choose his VP in terms of practicality, right? Who's going to win you the votes? So I don't know. I don't know to tell you the truth, but I'd be open to it. I don't entirely hate the idea, you know. But this is true. What about Vince Dow as vice president? Now we're talking. See, now I think we're in good territory. Yeah, this is true. Correct. All right. Bay of Pigs, Vince. Well, the Bay of Pigs was soft. Oh, that's like stage one. No, what are you doing? Just go and invade them, okay? You know, truthfully, we should. Okay. First of all, one of the biggest mistakes the United States ever made was not annexing Cuba. Why did we not do it? Could you imagine if Cuba was in our, you know, we'd have like a Hawaii on the East Coast. That'd be so sick, okay? Oh, yeah, we have Puerto Rico, whatever. Who cares about Puerto Rico? We should have just annexed Cuba, okay? Havana is beautiful. Cuba is beautiful. We did it to Hawaii, so why not have a Hawaii on the East Coast? I don't get it, right? I don't understand it, right? First of all, though, one of the biggest mistakes we made is not annexing Cuba, but we're anti-imperialist, guys. This is the biggest problem with, I think, American imperialism, is we lie to ourselves about it, right? And this has been true for all of American history. We try to tell ourselves, we're not really fighting for our own form of imperialism. We're fighting for democracy. So we do this halfway imperialism where we intervene and we get involved, but we don't just fully admit to ourselves what we're doing. We lie to ourselves about it. And I think that makes the worst of all worlds, right? Because that's what ends up with Castro and Cuba. Because we won't just be honest with ourselves that we're acting in our self-interest, right? Which is fine. Like, that's technically America first, but we don't acknowledge it. And so when we go into Iraq and Afghanistan, we want democracy. Instead of just saying we're invading, like nations have always invaded, and we're invading because we don't like the people and we want the people in power and we want to, overthrow them. No, guys, we're doing it for democracy. And this is part of why so many American interventions have failed. Because we want to be these benevolent imperialists. Either you intervene or you don't, right? But don't do this halfway where you lie to yourself and tell you it's for democracy, right? And this is what screwed us up a lot during the Cold War when you think about it, right? Because think about Bautista in Cuba, the dictator who was in power before Castro, okay? So think what you will of him, but he was a right-wing dictator. He was pro-America. He was not going to put missiles and communism on our own shores. He was actually very tough on communism, right? And it is what it is. But what did America do? Why did Castro, was he able to eventually get into power? Because America in the late 50s said, we don't really like Bautista because he's too brutal. So let's pull back. Because we keep telling ourselves it's all about human rights and democracy, right? So we withdraw our support for Bautista. And what happens? Castro wins. He overthrows him, and there you go. Now you have communism 90 miles from Florida. Great job, guys. Great job, ladies and gentlemen, right? And then what did they do? Right? What did they at least try to do? Spread communism through the Caribbean, spread it to Latin America. Good job, guys. The Marxists are literally on your border because what did you say? Human rights, we're really doing this for democracy, guys. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're doing this because you don't want the Soviets to spread their influence to your hemisphere of the world, which frankly is fine. I'm actually fine with that. Hot take. People might say that's not America first. No, I'm actually fine with that. I'm fine with stopping the spread of global communism. I think that's far more virtuous than trying to put gay rights in Afghanistan. Okay, I think they actually are different things. But if you're going to do that, at least admit it to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Don't kid yourself and say you're doing it for democracy, okay? But this is the problem. What happened? Communism in Cuba. There you go. That government is still there to this day. Okay, let's take a look at Vietnam, right? So South Vietnam used to have this dictator, right? His name, Ngo Dinh Diem. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. I'm Vietnamese. I should know how to say it, but, but, he was like this Catholic theocrat, right-wing dictator, right? Think what you will of that. Oh, I don't like that. That's he wasn't democratically elected. Okay. But dude, understand the situation. Same thing in South Korea, by the way. Understand the situation you're in. Okay? There are communists at the northern border trying to invade. Think what you will of this dictator, but communism represents everything that you oppose as a civilization. And what did we do? We would not back that, right? Allegedly, the CIA is part of the reason Dinh Diem got assassinated. And then look what happened in the ruins of that. After he got taken out, there was a power vacuum in the South Vietnamese government. And what you had after was just a bunch of corrupt politicians who didn't care you wonder why the country was so weak and, once we withdrew, that got invaded so quickly, right? Why did that happen? That happened because in the power vacuum of his dictatorship, which you might, it's a dictatorship. Who cares? You're at war with communism. Are you at war with anti-democratic forms of government? Or are you at war with communism? Are you at war with communism? Because here you had a right-wing dictator who was standing up to the communists and keeping law and order and keeping the communists at bay and keeping stability in South Vietnam. But because you wanted to be a moralist, because you said, no, you don't like that. What happened? What happened was the South Vietnamese government after him was a complete disaster. And the second the United States withdrew after, the war there was, was not popular with the public, what happened? In like 2 seconds. Oh, North Vietnam. Okay, we North Vietnam? Okay, just walk right into the country. This is the problem with American imperialism, right? Is we do it, but we won't just be honest about it. We won't be honest about it. Same thing happened in Afghanistan, by the way. Many such cases. But all people want to do is moralize and lecture about democracy. It's nonsense. Get over yourself. Really, get over yourself. The truth of the matter of the world, sorry to the people this offends, but it's true. Democracy or republicanism, like whatever, elected representative forms of government are not the norm of human existence. They actually kind of go against human nature in many ways, okay? So this idea, we managed to make it work in America miraculously. Okay, I'd argue it's not working so well these days, but fine. This idea that you can spread that to the whole world and just expect it to work, that's not the reality of humanity, okay? So I actually don't think it's a noble goal to want to spread democracy around the world. It's actually destructive. It gets people killed. It gets righteous people in some cases actually overthrown in favor of the masses who are carnal and destructive. I mean, it's just true. So anyways, let's get caught up here. Last call for Super Chats, by the way. We're going to end here at 9:35. So last call for Super Chats. Feel free to send them in now or hold your peace until tomorrow night. But all right, last few. Again, questions or comments you want read and answered, feel free to do so. All right, Trigonaut for $2 says, democracy is cringe. Read some Aristotle. This is so true. This is so true. Thank you for the $2, Trigonaut. I appreciate it very much. And Trigonaut for another $5 here says, a good leader is a good leader. Hold on. Okay, it won't play. All right, I'll just read it. Oh, there you go. A good leader is a good leader, whether he is elected or not. If he can lead a country from collapse and solve many issues, who cares, honestly? It's true. Thank you for the $5, Trigonaut. And this is exactly my argument, right? Oops. Got it again. Thank you, Trigonaut. I appreciate it. This is true. The dictator in South Vietnam was holding the country together. What happened in the power vacuum? You know, it's just, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. And frankly, sometimes when you're in a chaotic situation, you don't really have time for democracy. I mean, that's just the truth. You just don't, right? It's true. I think a litmus test for the understanding of this is like, what is your opinion of Julius Caesar, right? Because the objectively correct opinion is Rome was on the verge of collapse. The Republic was a disaster. And he rode in there and fixed it. And he actually saved his civilization, right? Oh, but he broke the norms. He broke the laws, guys. You know, Rome would have been done if it was not for Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is a hero. But this, I suppose, is the question, right? Is do you view him as a hero because he saved his empire from certain collapse? You know, and all that Rome built, that was even before Pax Romana. So all that, you know, that the glory of Rome has contributed to Western civilization, none of that would be there. But at least he would have not upended the democratic norms of the Republic, right? So it's like, do you value democracy more or do you value civilization more? Because, you know, there's a lot of democracies in the world, and guess what? Guess what happens in a state of democracy? They all just kind of kill each other. You don't really build civilization, right? So it's a legitimate question. Do you value democracy or do you value civilization? Because there come times in our existence when the two are actually not compatible. It's just true. I'm not saying it's now. I'm not saying the United States, you know, whatever. I'm just saying it is an understanding of human history. There are a lot of times where I would look at a reading of human history and say civilization was a more noble pursuit than democracy was. Okay? That's my opinion on a lot of these Cold War countries we got involved in. That's my opinion on the Middle East today. And that is my opinion on the Roman Empire. Okay? But it's an interesting question, I suppose. It's a philosophical debate, right? What is more noble? Civilization that is prosperous for the maximum amount of people, or having democratic representation? It's a good question. It's a good question. I think it's an interesting philosophical debate, but, you know, it is true. Rule of law, not rule of the mob. Very true. Helen Savannah says, howdy, Vince. Howdy, Helen. Hope you've been well. All right, folks. Oh, here we go. Got a super chat here on Cash App. Let me make sure I get to that. Fernandez T for $20. Thank you very much. Says, love your shiz, bro. USA, USA, USA. Thank you, Fernandez, for the $20. Good thing I caught that before we ended. Appreciate it very much. God bless you. And thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right, let me make sure Streamlabs, and make sure we didn't miss anything. And if we are all caught up on Super Chats for tonight, then I will wrap it up here. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to tonight's episode of The Vince Dao Show. As usual, be sure to join us tomorrow night for the end of the week, the last episode of the week. And yeah, folks, until I see you guys tomorrow, Alpha moves only. Everyone have a very good night. Be safe. God bless. And be sure to leave a like before you go, by the way. Let's get to 150 likes before we end. God bless and peace. See you guys later.
it.